Hey, Mike. Good morning and happy Tuesday.
Hello, it's a Tuesday. Here we go.
Yeah. How you doing this week?
Doing well, keeping busy, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And we talked about it a little earlier, but I do want to comment about the your 2023 changes to your office. I'm definitely a fan of with the nice lighting and a couple of the fun little PBX files that would be over
There
PBX
we go.
hats on that side. Yeah.
Whatever side it's on over here. Yeah, exactly. I've been. I decided to make the room a bit more professional looking. Kind of tidied it up a bit. My wife kept saying, "You keep putting junk on this wall in the back. It just needs to look better." So I also was trying to play with the camera. So the camera was it's a nice camera, and you can kind of try to get some of that bokeh effect as well. So I'm trying to add a little bit of artisticness to it, in addition to not only just changing the background of the scene.
Exactly. Yeah, that's from day one what I try to go as a bit of a minimalist of this is besides just keeping the couch uncluttered, I try to have the lights as my primary just little background aesthetic, just some subtle lighting. But at least the fun thing with this is, I can where see if I can get that to change around. I can actually change all like the scenes depending on what I want to play for the day and everything. So
Fun.
it is fun to kind of make like my own recipes for patterns and stuff.
Dig it.
Yeah. But I'm excited to have you on today. I know this is our what is it, third or fourth that we've done
No?
with various topics over the last couple of years now. This is I'm now up to 111 streams, and you're at like 200 and something for your podcast.
Yeah, we just broke to this morning was 210, and we are quickly ramping up. I mean, we had to play a little bit of catch up. There's been other people on YouTube a bit longer than we have. We're like, well, let's do one a week, and then we said, nah, we just do two a week. So we've been doing two a week, and we had the epiphany today. We were just talking about it. We're like, wow, we've hit 200 episodes. 52 a year would mean we've done this for over 2 years now. So
Yeah.
100 a year basically. So doubling that out, we've already done over 2 years of podcasting so far. So that's been a super fun. I learned a lot. I would do those things regardless. If no one even watched, I would still do them just because I really love learning from Tommy and Seth. They have a lot of different experiences, and we kind of keep bouncing ideas off each other, which has been super fun and very helpful for me just to kind of refine my ideas.
Well, and I think you're probably one of the few, if not the only individuals that outside of Adam and Patrick for content creation. Because as you mentioned, you do 2 a week, and even 1 a week for this live stream is something that, like it's a lot. But also because you guys have the same, it's always just you three.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier, I'm sure, just to schedule those versus finding.
Totally.
Getting people scheduled on, making sure they don't cancel, getting the content and everything else. But I
better.
do, yeah, and I still love what I do. Like bringing individuals on like yourself, I get to hang out and learn new stuff. But 111 streams, that's about 111 hours of content that I've got to absorb from a learning perspective as I moderate and everything with these. But half the fun is just being able to hang out. Like I now know a large portion of the community and probably 78 people that I would not have met otherwise if it wasn't through this. So I feel it ends up just building a sense of community, which was really fun. And I think you guys have probably just gotten to know each other a lot better over, because each of your podcasts is what, like 60, 90 minutes?
It's 60 minutes, which we try to keep. We try to keep it at 60. Sometimes
same thing with my live streams. It gets up a little bit, but that's 200 hours extra of you guys having conversation that wouldn't have happened anywhere else. So it's it's us just enjoying honestly being in a social media kind of an environment for ourselves. It's pays off for both people listening but us.
Well, selfishly, I like bringing. So I don't do a lot of. So our podcast does. For those of you who are following or have not heard of it before, we do the Explicit Measures podcast. We have it every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 a.m. on the PowerBI.tips YouTube channel. You can get it anywhere you really want. We're on Spotify. If you want to fall asleep to us, that's fine too. You can get it at Anchor, anywhere you want. And we banter about Power BI data things and our community, just not our community, the Power BI tips one, just like the broader data Power BI community is just super fun. A lot of people have been super helpful just in general. And all these live stream things, whether we're doing it for the podcast or we do user group sessions, we've been helping out a lot of other local Power BI user groups. We've helped out with the one up in Green Bay. We do Tommy's down in Chicago. We help out with the one in Iowa. We've done one with Madison. So we've kind of been presenting their content but it's just super fun to sit back and relax and listen to someone else speak about something they're very passionate about or something they've been learning about. And the community has always been super helpful to share things. And so I really love that the fact that we can do this, and there's so much great free content out there for people to enjoy and learn better and do better visual building inside their Power BI environment.
Exactly. And like there's only so much either you and I can ever learn on a particular topic or
100%.
subject, and being able to just absorb that and doing 109 of these too. Like I've also to a degree started to like just see patterns of I've taken tips on presentation styles. Like I've seen somebody does like this fun little quiz or a thing that's dropped into like, that's a good idea. I'm going to use that for my next presentation that I might do at a conference. So
nice.
It like as you said, taking a back seat and just really getting to hang out is a lot of fun. Digressions aside though, one thing I want to start with for us is for the people who are not familiar with you in the channel. Do you want to provide a little bit of information on you and also Power BI tips that you did mention as well before we get into the theme generator today?
Sounds great. So my name is Mike Carlo. I am a mechanical engineer by trade. So that was kind of my background. I love doing mechanical engineering, did that for a number of years, built some products, did some research and development type pieces. Eventually found myself in the sales and marketing group. And because I was a data guy anyways, and already doing a lot of engineering things, I found myself just doing a lot of Excel. I became like the Excel person who was the Excel guru in our department. And so from there, I very quickly found Power Query. That's where my data love kind of kicked off. There's like, this is incredible. That's stuff that you can do there. The automation that's available from Power Query, like this is so cool. And right about that time, I actually learned about this new program coming out, Power BI Designer, the original name. And so I very quickly said, okay, let me just test this thing out. And when I saw it doing its thing, and I think right before the Power BI Designer came out, there was this SharePoint BI thing that was kind of out, and you could use Power View and Power Maps and things.
Power View, painful love,
all bolted onto Excel. And I'm like, well, I thought they were really cool. They were okay. And then when Designer came out, like, oh yeah, this is amazing. It takes my thoroughly enjoyed love of Power Query and joins it to this modeling thing that I can do. And I didn't really know at the time this was all analysis services. I just understood that it was this way of loading data and making visuals that were interactive. I thought this is super cool. So that was my moment. So that's when I jumped into the community. This all happened like around 2015, and at 2016 I was like, hey, I'm going to start blogging about this stuff because I'm learning it. I'm trying to teach people in my company about Power BI, and they kept asking me questions, and I figured, well, if I'm learning this, my team is learning it, why not present the information? And I almost made an internal SharePoint page to do all the tutorials. But then at the last minute, I was like, you know what? If I'm learning this, the broader community and globe was also going to learn this too. So then I decided to build my own website, and that was the beginning of PowerBI.tips. In 2016, I started the website, and it's been just articles and building things. And then, as the nerdiness that I am, I went on to get my MBA, a master's in data science, and so those kind of technologies kind of pull together. And so now we're here in 2023, and now we've got all this really rich tools. But Power BI Tips has gone on to develop all these little ancillary tools and items to help you build better visuals or help you build better theming on top of your Power BI reports. So there's a lot of tools that are out in the community focused on data modeling, DAX, other things. We are one of the few kind of people out there that are really focusing on the visual side of things and building tools specifically for the visuals. So we were the first.
And the business ops too, by the way. Like I just dropped a link to that in there.
Thank you.
That was a super useful tool. That there's a lot of just like, man, I wish I would have thought of an external tool for external tools.
Yeah,
that was a great idea. Yeah.
Well, I was struggling because there were so many external tools showing up in the community that I was like, I had a hard time figuring out, well, what's new? Who's got what? There's all these scripts. I got to install this. Like it was a nightmare. So I was like, you know what? We should just make a centralized place to then have everything go through a single tool. And we are releasing here in the next week or so another major update to Business Ops. We're going to have it right now. The file today is kind of large to install, but we're going to make it more efficient so it doesn't load every single tool you can download. It'll automatically update tools that are from GitHub repos for you. It'll do a lot more handling of all those external tools for you to make it much simpler, longer term for your computer and when you work with external tools. So that's coming. Those things are stay tuned. And then all of these tools kind of now have dovetailed into something that we've been wanting to build for years now, and we finally just released it. We've had a theme generator for a long time. It was probably one of the first Microsoft BI tools that we built that supplement Power BI. But we've now just recently released PowerBI.tips Plus, which is a subscription-based service where we help you store, collect, and manipulate your theme files so that way it becomes more of your general workflow. So that's kind of what we're demoing today. We're going to kind of deep dive on themes and theme generation.
Yeah, I can flip over to the screen if you want to show some of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent.
So this is our landing page for the theme generator. So if you want to visit this is themes.powerbi.tips. This is our service. Just to be clear, the entire tool is free to use. You'll see there are a couple feature enhancements that we've made for paid subscribers, just so because it costs us money to run certain things of the tool. But in general, we want to make this as free and as easy to use for anyone in the community to go use. So anyone can use it today. You can build and generate your theme files. So I'm going to quickly just go over the two main elements of the theme generator, and then we'll kind of step back here and come back to the palette, and we'll actually start using the tool together. So first and foremost, you'll see that we have the first page is the palette page. This is where you're picking your colors. You have a color picker here on the right-hand side that you can manipulate and move and pick some colors. And then we also have a properties ribbon here at the very top. And in the properties area, we have all these different visuals that you can stylize or change the properties on individual visuals. So you can click on the bar chart or the pie chart as well. And those will highlight different charts or chart properties for each of those particular chart types. And you'll notice there's a very clear call out here that sign up for PowerBI.tips Plus and you can get live updating. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to log in to the platform so you can see there's no advertisements and you can see the neat features of being able to see a visual in real time render the changes as you change the properties. So you can click into sign in. You can sign in from GitHub, Microsoft, or your Twitter accounts. And then once you're logged in and with a subscription, you'll be able to see that all the ads are removed. You get a little bit more landscape to build your theme files. So I'm going to start here on the very first page for the palettes. I'm going to kind of go through the basics of what is happening here on this page. Let me zoom it on as well, just to make sure I've got it on here, in case I need to zoom on the page. Okay, so we're good to go. All right. So first and foremost, when you're building theme files or as you're building a theme file, the first thing you want to think about is what does your color palette look like? What kind of things are you going to leverage to build a color palette? You can do this a number of ways. There are websites that do this. We're actually making a major revision to this tool as we speak. We're going to bring to you a color wheel that will let you pick a single color and pick complementary colors, pick gradients of colors and color gradients across things. So stay tuned. There's some major updates coming here in the next few weeks.
So for that as well, there was one thing that I've always been curious about. This is the, or maybe if you've ever had the idea of it, there are some of the color palettes that are built into Power BI that are nice to use as far as just the colors. The fact that a lot of the themes have access labels turned on and other annoyances are awful, but like Classroom or City Park, there's a few nice like soft pastel colors that work pretty well. But for the most part, if I wanted to use one of those in here, like I want that color theme, but I want to modify it in here, like what would be the process today to do that? Would there be an easier way to like lift and shift just that string of colors into this and then basically say, I just want the colors, but then do whatever I want for customization?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways we've allowed you to do this one. So a couple options. So we don't have any of the standard Power BI theme properties, those color palettes that are available to you built in today. We do have, however, another tool that we've built, and we're working on integrating this more closely into our tool. It's called Gallery. So this is the gallery for colors that people have generated on our website. So this gallery allows you to see any number of colors or color palettes that are available to you, and you can click on them, and it will then render a report for you. It'll give you a sample report. And when this report renders, it'll basically demo or basically show you, here's what these colors potentially would look like on top of this visual. So this is what this may look like. So this is one place where you could go find general color palettes. And this is almost an infinite scrolling list. There's probably over 10,000 color palettes on here. And you can just keep going through people's stuff. So one thing, the reason I'm bringing this up is any website that you go to, so no matter what you're doing, we actually have a feature down here called multiple input. So this area here allows you to go grab any kind of color hex codes that are separated with a comma or a hashtag or not, we will allow you to absorb those directly into our tool. So for example here, if I open up this theme file that I just downloaded from our gallery, you'll see here we have a list of data colors right here, just a list of hex color codes. So if I copy that, Control C, and then minimize this and paste it down here, you'll see that we now have, quotes and some formatting issues there, but we should be able to add that. And what it will do is it'll automatically add all the colors from that theme that we just had previously. So this is an easy way of taking any colors from anywhere. There's actually a number of tools, Color Brewer, all these different tools, and they basically provide a list of hex codes, and you can then easily drop them in here as well. So this kind of allows you to kind of use any tool you want. And if you are an avid user of Microsoft products, there's another tool here called Power Toys. I think it's really amazing. So it's Power Toys, which is made by Microsoft. And with that one, you actually can use Control Shift C, I think that's it. Control C, Windows C. No, that's not it. Wait, go away.
I have one of those keyboards with a bunch of the extra macro buttons on the right that I have mine mapped to, so I can always just touch it with a finger and immediately get a color picker on screen.
That's a great idea. Yeah. So this one allows. So if you have an image or something that's on the internet somewhere, if you use the Power Toys tool, Windows Shift C is the shortcut that allows you to pick any color on any page anywhere you want. So you can kind of pick any color. So if you have an image or a company logo, this works really well for that. And then when you click it, you actually have the ability of grabbing that hex color code directly from there as well. You can change it. You can either add other ones. You actually have shades or gradients of colors. You can kind of go in here and automatically change this. It's all free. You can use whatever you want. And then you can copy that, put it down here in the hex color codes and add it. And that'll then immediately add it directly to your color palette. So that's kind of the initial how you get hex codes in. Let's go through and I'll just show you how to work with the features on this page. So first and foremost, you have a single color picker here on the left-hand side. You can drag the cursor around. It lets you pick different shades of the color. It goes more gray or white, or you can go darker as well in any of those color codes. And you can see it automatically updates a hex color code for you automatically. The code is present in the upper window and the window below. So if you wanted to paste one in, you can automatically paste a code in and it'll go right to it. So if you have a code you want to reuse, you can go ahead and do that. And then when you click the add button down below, adding it will then directly add that over into the other side of the window.
Beautiful.
Now, you may want to tweak a color. There's also opportunities like you added one, it's not quite right, you wanted to maybe modify it. So what we've also added here on the palette side, once you have some colors that have been added, you have a little handle on the right-hand side. So that's this little guy here, the handle. The handle will allow you to then rearrange the colors in any order that you want. And now the order is important for Power BI Desktop. If you move the colors in the sequential order, so it's top to bottom here, this will be the first color that's listed in the theme file. And that means on your Power BI reports, this will be the first color that shows up by default. So this is kind of your default color, the second, the third, the fourth, all the way through. So you can grab the handle here, we can rearrange the colors as we need to. And then maybe I want to adjust the color of a single color. So what you can do is click on the color square, and what that'll do is it'll automatically go back to the color picker and then rearrange, and it'll basically take that color and add it directly to the main header there. And now you can then continue to tweak that color if you want to a different shade or whatever you need there. And then you could then re-add it back to your color palette. So you could then modify that color based on an existing color that you have.
Will it let you add more colors than are available in that little palette picker, or?
Yeah, you can basically add an infinite number of colors. So as many colors as you want, you could add up to 100 colors in here. I think I've done over 100 colors just as a test. Just kind of keep.
What happens then? Because that color picker that you get only shows 8. I think that you can assign. So but the tree map, of course, continues to go forever if you have like 1,000 fractals that are popping up into it. So with the extra colors in here, tell it to, like, rather than just trying to generate what it thinks is a matching color, will it just start to go from the rest of your palette?
Yes. Yeah. So if you, what you're referring to there, Rita, for those who are kind of listening along here, if you go into Power BI Desktop, let me move that over here real quick. The feature here is if I click on a visual and then adjust the bars and then click on the data color here, this is the standard color picker you get from Power BI Desktop. Yeah. And you're referring to, the first 2 layers of colors here are always the same. They're always gray and white. And there are actually indexes that are aligning to each of these color palettes. And this is something that's unique to our color picker that no other color picker has, or any other theme generation tool here as well. Believe it or not, there's actually an index with each of these color items here. So the item, the white one, is actually item 0. So this is level number 0. As you move forward here, each one of these actually gets a new number. So this is a number, item number 1, 2, 3, and this would be item number 4 up here. So these are color indexes. It's indexing the colors based on a numbering schema. So the idea here is if you build a theme file and you change the colors at the beginning portion of the theme file, you want to be able to index off of which color is the one that you're interested in, because then you can actually do shades of those colors above and below. So the primary color is actually color number 4. But then there's actually an algorithm inside the Power BI desktop program that takes this original color and it lightens it by some number and then darkens it by some number. So everything down here below is basically being generated by code, and the primary color is the only one that's actually being used from that color theme palette.
Can you show one of the tooltips actually, just to represent that? Like if you go to any of the colors down there, back in that color palette, just hover over one of those generated ones, because it tells you what's happening. There you go. It's the theme color with the extra white applied. Yes, 40% lighter. Yeah, unfortunately when you zoom in, you don't get the...
it doesn't let me auto zoom it. So
yeah, exactly. But there you go. It's the theme color with... Basically, what it's doing is it's adding either white or black to the color automatically. And it's doing the mixing for you, basically, with the paintbrush.
So that is the percentage there. And when we get into the theme file a bit more deeply here, you'll be able to see how we're also applying a similar logic, but we're also giving you the ability to color this even further. So again, rule of thumb here is, to answer your question beforehand, was, okay, how many colors can we have? Well, there's only technically 8 colors you're ever going to see. However, your color theme can actually contain way more colors than what's present here. So in a visual that has more than 8 items, the theme file will then continue on 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way until the end. And then at the end of your color palette, the Power BI program will start trying to generate its own colors based on your palette. So it'll kind of do some kind of auto color generation if you don't.
It doesn't do that bad of a job from what I've seen. It's a little wonkier if you put a custom color theme in yourself, but any of the standard ones that it has out of the packages, all the colors definitely fit in there. So it has some algorithm that does determine like shades and level of intensity versus how much pastel it is, and gets matching looking colors. But the tree map is usually where I see stuff like that, or you have a bar chart that has 140 categories.
Yes. I would argue to some degree, if you're going to have that many colors on a particular chart or bar chart or tree map, we're talking a bit more philosophical at this level, but like I probably would not recommend that for a normal standard report. When you look at good looking reports, you're probably using a good 4, 5, 6 colors. Anything more than that kind of starts becoming overwhelming unless you're really trying to tell a very specific story about something and you need that extra coloring. So I would say 8 is probably sufficient. Again, you can do as many as you want. So with that being said, that is this is the palette page. The only thing I think I didn't cover here was 2 other buttons here at the far right-hand side, where you can clear everything or you can delete a single color right here. So you can actually kill it right there and remove an individual color and then rearrange. So this is building the first portion of your theme file, just the color palette. Moving over to the next part of the tool, you go over to the properties page. So in the properties page, it gives you a little lens here. It lets you see, okay, here's the palette of colors that you selected earlier. And then now we have this thing called the chart picker. And so this allows you to pick different types of charts, either global properties or individual chart properties down below. Now, something that people don't really understand here, or as they're looking at this, there's this thing, the little star. This is not a visual. What this is the star property is something of the theme files that specify this is a property at any level, wherever it's found inside the Power BI desktop application. And you'll notice if you use the global property, and we call this kind of global properties, if you turn the x-axis off in the global properties, every single visual will be overridden and have that default property of the title of all visuals are off. Something that's interesting here is inside the spec of the theme files themselves, there are duplicated names of things. So when you look at global properties, there are certain properties that have the same name twice. And you'll see this right here. Like here, for example, analysis is listed 2 times. This is, my understanding is, again, this is kind of always, being a little bit adjusted by Microsoft, and they're adjusting things. The reason there are 2 items is because 2 different visuals have slightly a different name for the same property. So it may be, analysis might be the description, but the underlining property of the word analysis is a separate JSON named element. So again, if you're in the global properties, you may have to set some properties twice because the naming of those properties are actually different in the JSON file.
That's good to know. Like, I was curious about a couple of those. And I know, as you mentioned, this is all procedurally generated, basically. The menus, the submenus and everything based off of how it scans and then builds this. Because like you're not manually going in and making these changes yourself. So it's a double-edged sword. You get instant updates with this as soon as Microsoft adds something to the documentation.
Yes.
But then you get some little wonkiness because the structure of the JSON and how they chose to describe things can be a bit weird.
Yeah, and you'll see if they actually have the description. Yeah, they have this in the same thing. I don't think there's any difference here. Yeah, so you'll see this one here. So in this one, it's this example here. You'll see this one's named shapes. And there's a whole bunch of properties for shapes. However, there's another shapes with different properties. That's because somewhere in the JSON schema, underneath a visual, a button, a menu, a shape, something, there's 2 things called shapes. And so they're actually different properties of different stuff, but if we actually added these to a JSON theme file, you would see that there are 2 distinct names for each of those things called shapes. Anyway.
Right, and this is the actual insert shape in that one section, and these are the shapes inside of a visual, like a scatter plot or a line chart or anything else. Yeah, so there are 2. Yeah, once you open them up, you can, if you've used PowerBI, you can start to you can kind of see like, okay, yeah, that's this thing. I'll also just just quick little soapbox is the join type on line right in there inside of that, like the join type on lines, like midder, rounded, like unless you have a 4K monitor and you zoom in like 500%, you cannot tell. Yes. I have a 4K monitor, so I use zoom it and will actually zoom in to show
I can't even see it.
Itty bitty thing. But it is the most worthless thing to do on a line chart. Miguel has talked about that we're actually getting a spline. We're actually going to start eventually we're going to get splines and everything else as part of those big shapes. We'll actually get proper different line types from step to angled to the slope. But yeah, that is an entirely worthless configuration.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in here I don't always use. So one of our kind of backlog items here is we know people change options and we can kind of see what options people are changing. We'll probably at some point start adding like favorited options or most used or most frequently used options. So you can kind of see like, not all the properties, but only the ones that are probably the most important to you. So that's kind of the landscape of this properties page. We're going to get into the most exciting part of this page. And this is something that no other tool is doing. This is like rocket science at this point. I love this feature of this. So we've been talking about the global properties, and you'll see on the right-hand side, this visual is not yet supported. Interesting. So if I click on the stacked bar chart here, what we're actually doing is we've added some technology to this theme generator that actually allows you to see everything as it's being rendered. So I've clicked on the bar chart and I can change the properties of the bar chart, and the bar chart instantly renders those changes based on those properties. This is huge. This was my biggest complaint with anyone building theme files. You just can't see the changes. I don't know what I'm adjusting. So for example, one of the ones I like to use as a demo here, the option called divider. This is the gray line that was just recently added in the last couple versions of desktop, where you could add a color bar at the very top of your visual.
With the subtitles and everything you have now, yeah.
You can add subtitles to it. You can make sure you show it. You can then actually make it a dotted line or a shaded line or whatever you want. And then you can increase the width of this line right here. And what you'll notice is as I'm adjusting these properties, the visual is instantly updating with those properties right there. Now, I'm demoing things here, so just be aware I'm not doing a lot of work here to make things very easy to use or stylized, but I'm just going to show you how things work. If I go back over to my palette section here again and maybe rearrange my colors here, let's make a blue at the top. Go back over to my properties. you'll see that it will re-render the visual with that new option in there. So then I can change my other items on the page to reflect those as well.
So I'm going to show you one curveball for a property here that I love the instant rendering as far as the aesthetics that can show up into here. But do you get any feedback on visual header configuration when you hover your mouse over that? Like as an example, like I don't want, I want to see what would this look like if I turn off pin. Like, well, what's expand versus go down to hierarchy? Like those kind of things, because there's what, like 20 properties I think in there that you can turn on and off. Is there any thoughts on getting any kind of and not necessarily a hover effect thing, but just simply showing what icons would or wouldn't be there depending on what you configure for the visual? Because that's a property I think down the listing here, right? To choose the header icons.
Yeah. So there's a so the way we're rendering, when you render things with PowerBI embedded, so that's kind of what's happening here behind the scenes. There's some PowerBI embedded happening that are letting us render a single visual. Those header tooltips are not really acknowledged when you're rendering through embedded. This is kind of an output produced a version of that. So I don't think there's any way that we can actually enhance or not enhance that. But
one thing you could in theory do is like almost like an SVG image. Like you're not actually rendering it on the visual, but you just have a section at the top that just simply shows the icons. And if you do one of them, it makes that icon disappear. The icons to the left like scoot over, but it shows a
good idea.
Rough preview of what that is, because I do know a lot of people, and it's one thing I teach is they just publish with every icon turned on for every visual, and then you just have way too many pop-ups and stuff.
Way too many.
It's just it's very noisy and confusing, and you focus mode a slicer and you want to know why your report broke.
Well, that's a great question, and what you're asking for is a new feature here, which what I'll do here is I'll actually present here. So we actually have an entire Git repo for anyone to come up with new ideas or featured items, and I'll have the item here, and I can't put it in the chat window because I'm not a chat person on the YouTube channel there, Reed. But if you want, here's the GitHub issue location. It's github.powerbi.tips/tools/issues. You can go here and create an idea. So there's lots of great ideas that are coming. The community has great ideas. We have a number of here that are tagged. We periodically review these and figure out which features or bugs we need to squish inside the tool to make it better and better enhanced for the broader audience. So this is the issues list. Feel free to jump in there and add your comments. This is how we engage with us and then you as the community and help us create a better tool. So if you don't mind, go ahead and throw your item in there and let us know. Excellent. And we'll be able to add that or look at the backlog and put it in there.
So I see a button for new issues. Like, would you do the same thing if you wanted to? Oh, here we go. We've got issues, action, request, projects. Because I just opened the page up for people. Where would you, if I wanted to submit an idea, would that also be the issue button? Yeah.
So if you click a new issue, you can actually have an item here under the labels. You actually in GitHub, you actually can have an enhancement. So that's typically a feature or request. So everything's technically an issue, but then you can add enhancement or question or other things there as well. So we have tagging in there that allows you to tag your question or idea there as well.
Perfect.
Excellent. Cool. So that being said, let's keep going a little bit further here. There's some other feature enhancements. So we're just adding some very basic items here. You may want to, other items here, you may want to center the title. You may want to change the size of the title, make it a bit larger. So we can change the words of the title as well. One thing that really bugs me a lot on these standard visuals is that the X and Y axis are always labeled and on. So I'm typically adjusting those as well. So going to the X axis, down to the show property, and I'm turning I want the title actually, X axis title.
The only visual that honestly makes sense to do is a scatter plot from the native ones. Like,
I would agree.
That makes sense because there's two measures, and like the title can't imply that. But every other categorical visual, it's either by category, which is going to be in the title, and you have the bars for the measures. But it's just like I don't know why because they seem to do a lot of market research when they build this and ask people who are UI designers to like come up with the themes. So I'm surprised because that was not part of the original. All the original themes that came with PowerBI Desktop did not have that. And then they had a new batch of themes, which was 2 steps forward, 1 step back. They made the text bigger by default. They did have better color palettes, all good changes that came. Yes. But then they put way too many labels on everywhere.
Yes.
And it's like it's not necessary.
Agreed. This is also why I really recommend building a theme file or building things in a theme file that makes sense for what your company wants. Like, have someone graphically go through and figure out what should our visuals look like? How should we build things? And one of the most difficult options to build when you're building a theme file is try to make something in dark mode. If you're trying to build a dark mode theme file, it's almost impossible because you have to change so many properties to get everything to look right. You have to change the text color. You have to change the background color. You have to change the lines, the borders, the titles. Everything needs to be changed to some degree, and there's so many properties to adjust. You just need to see the visual while you're building it. So that's why we really built this tool as well, to be able to add that as well. So now I've stylized my visual a little bit more. Some other options here that you'll notice here at the very top. In the visual, I have this option called Legend and Small Multiples. So we know when we build Power BI visuals in desktop, there are additional field windows that you'd add data into. So you can add another data field to the legend. You can add another data field to the small multiples, but you may not have that on every single visual. So what we do is we actually let you render or re-render the visual with additional properties applied to it. So you can turn on the legend and see what that would look like. And when you turn on the legend, now you could stylize the properties before, but now you can actually see where the legend is positioned. So now I can say, oh, I don't want it on the top anymore. I want it at the very bottom. So now we want bottom center, and then we'll move the legend to wherever you want. So then again, you can see that thing and then adjust the style properties for that element. Another one, and the same thing for the bar charts, is the small multiples. So we've actually turned on small multiples as well. So now you can see this chart as if it was small multiples. And now some of the small multiple tile properties, you could adjust them as well. There's also grid layout, which is also part of the small multiple things as well. You can adjust those. You can say, I want 3 rows, and then it'll adjust that as well. So you can start tweaking the properties of this one. And anytime you want to reset something, we have a little bit of visual indication here. So anytime you adjust a property, we try to make this blue property populate. So if you look at this theme file now, I can quickly scan through all the properties and see which ones have been adjusted and which ones have not. And we now have multiple ways of resetting things. I can reset the individual property by going to the reset button, which appears after you've set the property, or I can reset the entire section of properties by clicking the reset button here at the upper level. So you can reset the whole group by itself. So again, very easy to use, makes it very simple to be able to build your theme file. With that, I think that covers most of the basic items here.
I did have one question from Mark that actually just wanted to pop up. He wanted to know, can you change the background color of a visual when you expand it? So basically focus mode, I think.
No, I think in expanded mode, Microsoft takes over the theming of that particular visual, and you don't really have the ability to change or stylize that element. Kind of just defaults to what it does. But you can change the background inside the theme file. So if I remove a couple things here, let's get rid of the grid layout, let's get rid of the legend properties. You can go over here to the background, and you would be able to adjust the background color of the visual itself. And then you can then adjust the transparency as well. So if you want to lighten that up or make it a bit darker, you can do that as well to continue to enhance your visual aspect. So that will work. You can change the visual of the background on the individual visual.
Okay, no, good to know.
I have a couple other visuals that we can play around with here as well. The pie chart, which I do not love, which is a waste of a visual, but whatever. I have a demo with some stuff on there, so we'll put a couple things on here as well. So again, we can go through here. We can add our title. We can center it again, center the title, and make it a little bit larger here. Let's go up to like around 18. Oops, let's go a little higher. 17, 18. And maybe we want the legend to be hidden on this one for whatever reason. We don't want the legend here at all. We can actually turn that off with the show property and turn that off, and the legend will disappear, and we'll have a nice big pie chart. So that may be all I want to style. So this will then be all your properties. Now, one of the biggest challenges here has been when you build a theme file, you want to save your work. You want to keep it for later. So if you're a PowerBI.tips Plus subscriber, you can actually save your theme file. So I can go up here and I can click the little pencil button. I can rename this one. This will be the stream theme. And that'll then change the name of this theme file. And then I can save it. So now when I save this file, it will then successfully save the theme. And now as a Tips Plus subscriber, you can go into my themes area, and now you can see all your theme files here. Now, in all cases, when you are a subscriber, anywhere you go, you can actually look at the theme file on top of a report. So in the saved themes area, you can then click the eyeball, which will then illuminate a dummy report with your theme in it. And it's only stylizing just the colors. It's not actually producing all the other visuals and the visual settings there as well. We're working on some feature enhancements that'll let this report be a bit more dynamic. So it'll pick up the different visuals that you have and showing them as they're styled in your theme file.
That's awesome.
You can also do that on the palette as well. So if you're also a Tips Plus subscriber, you actually have an eyeball next to the palette. So one thing I didn't point out earlier is on the palette page, if you click preview, it'll also bring up the same preview of a Power BI file and show you that demo of colors so you can see if it actually looks good together.
Yep. And I think the one question that I have is as part of saving, which I think is really useful considering the number of settings that you would hopefully not have to come back in and start from scratch, because I could easily spend an hour probably tweaking my proper file here. Is there a plan and support for if you had built a file with this that was downloaded, let's just say you forgot to click the save button, can you upload it back in to make an edit?
Great question. This has probably been our second most requested feature that anyone's asked for, is being able to upload their own theme files. Before Microsoft produced a spec file, so Microsoft has produced a specification, it's on GitHub, it's public, it's available, anyone can use it. Until Microsoft produced that file, it was very difficult for us to be able to upload other people's stuff because we had to check it to see if it's right, because these properties are named a very specific way. If you send us a malformed JSON object, if you send us a property that we don't acknowledge or Microsoft does not acknowledge, we had no way of handling it, and we had no way of notifying you about what was good and what was not good. So now that the spec is out, we're looking at adding to our backlog the ability of being able to upload your own theme files. With that comes a lot more work, though, because we have to check your theme file and make sure that it's correct and aligns to what Microsoft says is the right way to design your specification. So that being said, we may let that happen in the future. For now, we don't have that ability because we don't want to have we don't want to take responsibility for how well or not well you can write your Power BI JSON theme files. So today, we basically just let you build in our tool and download. So those main items would be what you'd want to build in our tool and then save it. And then you can always come back and recall that theme file at any time you want. So I could, at any point in time, edit these other theme files. And by doing so, it basically reloads all the properties from these pre-existing theme files. I can see everything else that I've adjusted in any other demos or other items that I have. So I can always go back to my theme files and then edit a different theme, and it then repopulates all the colors for me instantly. And now I have all the properties just the way I had before previously. So kind of a, we're getting there. It's not there yet. We're trying to get it out as quickly as we could. So we didn't really want to take on the extra burden of checking your work before getting theme files created. No,
like, and as you're mentioning, I think having this come out in phases, because I very much know the project stagnation that can happen if you try to get every feature out in day one. So
we wanted to get something out the door immediately, and this is it's high. I'll say it this way: it's high on our backlog. It's very important for us, and I think that will be that and a couple other neat features, or like the color wheel, right? Very important, right? How pick color palettes that work well together. Yeah, understand. That makes total sense. So we're going to continue to enhance this. And again, if you like what you're using here and if you're finding value from this, we'd really appreciate you to be a subscriber, because it helps us funnel money back into more development so we can make this better, make it easier, help you build more things with it. So it really helps us to continue to develop this and improve the experience here to make it just the best way to build reports and quickly build reports, not wasting a lot of time.
Okay, excellent.
So the last part here is once you have all this done and created, you can then go ahead and download your file. It'll then generate a theme file that you'll have on your local computer. If you open it up, so I'm opening up this theme file, you'll see here right away in the file that this is the format that we just applied to the file. Now, one thing you'll notice here that's very different between what we do versus what every other theme generator tool does. If you notice here, we added some colors into the theme file. And in the divider section, this is that divider that we put across the top of the bar chart here. You'll notice that there's a number of cascading elements: color, solid color, expression, and then you'll see this thing called theme data color. No other tool that I'm aware of uses any of these properties. This is something unique to just us. So the idea here is it's best practice to not use a hard-coded theme color inside your JSON theme file. Why? Anytime you want to adjust those colors, it should be based on those root colors that were applied at the very top of the theme file. So these primary colors are really what should drive everything inside the theme file, because you can make derivatives on those. You can make slight tweaks or changes. You'll also notice here, the color ID is color ID 0. That's that first item in our list of the color IDs. Okay. So that's the very first item that's not gray or white. This is that first color that's in there. And what you can do then is you can continue to enhance or tweak. Once you have the file, you can continue to change the shading of it. So minus would be darker. The other colors that would be above, so it goes from 1 to -1. And you can lighten the color or darken the color based on that number. So 0.3 is 30% darker, I guess how you'd read that. So then you can then scale up or down the coloring or the shading of that color as well. So that's why we do it. And that makes that theme basically universal. You can replace any of these colors with anything else, and immediately that primary color, so again, in this case, it's color ID 0, which would be this one at the very top, that color ID would be automatically applied to that new property inside that visual. Again, making the report theme feel very congruent across the colors and then the palettes that you're using at the stylizing of the properties.
And I'm looking at a couple questions just on the chat and answering a few.
Okay.
On the idea of like colors and theming, have you seen anybody so far in your themes gallery create anything based off of the Microsoft Fluent Design Framework?
Yeah, the Microsoft Fluent Design Framework is more of a design framework for like buttons and it's more like XD based things. That's more like app level app dev stuff. You really don't get the same translation of properties between a theme file and what Microsoft does from Fluent Design. So yeah, I would say the answer is no. The Microsoft Fluent Design Framework is actually more around app dev as opposed to what Microsoft has been producing inside their data environment. You'll also notice between what we're doing here in like Power BI versus Excel versus like app or Power Apps, all three of those programs have a different way of stylizing their things. Power Apps uses a different method than Power BI. Power BI uses a different method than Excel. So all of the programs, the teams really didn't sync. It'd be nice if they all got together and said, let's build a Fluent Design framework for all three of these programs. That would be great, but they really don't typically use that. Any other questions?
Yeah. No, yeah. It was just a couple of other people who were just wondering about properties being set, but nothing that I haven't been able to answer separately. Let's see. And then Greg's just saying, seems like Figma comes up with oh, actually, yeah, this is actually a good one that it just came up, but I'll pop it onto the screen. So, yeah, Greg Kramer was just mentioning that Figma comes up a lot with designers. Do either of us find ourselves using it that often for Power BI development?
All the time. So where does Figma fit, right? So Figma doesn't stylize visuals. Figma doesn't adjust properties. Figma can't make bar charts or columns or whatever. All that has to be done in Power BI Desktop. Where Figma is really good, and what you watch a lot on videos on YouTube, is Figma individuals build the background. That's really the background image. And we actually have a number of things that we produce on PowerBI.tips called scrims. So a scrim is basically a collection of backgrounds that match a stylized theme or something like that along those lines. So if you go to PowerBI.tips/scrims, you'll see these are a bunch of things that we've built in Figma or XD that are really enriched backgrounds. It has paletizes, and we have background colors, and we have a header bar, and we have places for buttons and places for visuals. And it really polishes the look and feel of a report. And we highly recommend you use very nice images for your backgrounds on your Power BI reports, because every time you add another visual element on the report page, it takes it longer to render. And I think I did a blog a long time ago called Mo Visuals, Mo Problems, because the more you add to your report, slower it will render. So in essence, you want to have as few objects as you possibly can to make your report work, because that will just make everything snappier.
Exactly. Yep. I think you added like 98 text boxes on the page at the time.
It was a text box. It had literally had no data in it. There was like no data in the visual at all. So I wouldn't even be like very clear here. Like it makes sense. If I add up 30 pie charts to a page, yeah, of course it's going to render slow. But I added an object that had no data on it at all, and it increased the load time by like 300% just by adding 100 text boxes. It was just totally angry. So again, when Power BI renders a report in PowerBI.com, it can only use a web browser, and the web browser is single-threaded, meaning it can only render one visual visually at a time. So it renders one item and then the next and the next and the next. Because of that pattern, it doesn't parallel load data. You have to be able to minimize the number of objects on the report page. Again, usually when I'm building things, the biggest cause of issue is the DAX is bad, the model is slow. Those are the major causes of why visuals render slowly. But if you want additional performance, or if you have visuals that are running slow on a page, you probably have too many objects on the page to begin with. You need to remove them and pare them down.
Exactly. I did have one individual asking, like, can you show how to use the file? So if you could maybe just quickly show what's the export from web, import into desktop.
Yes, that's actually what I was going to get to next. So
nice.
We just finished our theme file here. And what I did is I clicked this little download file button. So this little button here is called download file. You can use that right there. When you click that, it will then produce a file on your desktop. And I already did that a little earlier in the video. You'll see here I have the stream theme.json. And once we have that, we can then leave the web browser and we can go over to Power BI Desktop. And now I can go over to the view ribbon at the very top, view ribbon. And then I'll click this little down arrow right here in the themes section. So the themes section is right here. Clicking the down arrow, I'll be presented with all the different themes I want. And I go down here to the very option called Browse for Themes. That's the one you want. So if I click on Browse for Themes, it'll then bring up my computer, and then I'll be able to grab the stream theme that I had earlier. And when I hit OK, it'll say file successfully added, got it, and then I hit OK. And you'll see that all my visuals have changed. Now, one of the visuals you'll notice here is this middle one where I changed the background color, but you don't see the background color in this one. And if you were observant and watching that, you may have noticed that. So I believe plot area and background, where did it go? Microsoft has changed all the options here. Let's see if I can search for it. Background. Here is the option. Style, maybe it's size and style. I believe it's the transparency that's off on that one. And that's why you don't see the color. It's still white. Maybe I changed it back. I could have changed it back already, but that's it. So now we've got our stylized properties. You'll notice here on the pie chart, there is no legend. That's off by default. And on the visual itself, there is the properties have been applied here. You see the color bars have been applied there as well. And if I add a additional data field to this visual, watch me stumble around in this new area here. So let's go here to legend.
Yep.
I'm going to go add the product. This is so clunky nowadays. And let's change it to a stack bar chart. Let's go change that again to legend, going to be product. There we go. So there's my bar chart, stacked bar chart with my background color and my colored bars based on that. And now you can see my legend has moved to the bottom. So I've already stylized the visual. I don't have to change anything. It automatically builds it the way I want. And then I can go ahead and just have that stylized and ready to go. The only other thing I will note here that is relevant to note is the theme files are the default settings now. So as soon as I adjust a property, a lot of times what people will do is they'll go to Power BI Desktop and they'll change some properties in desktop. They'll apply the theme file and then say, it doesn't work. It's not changing. That's because when you adjust properties in desktop, the properties you adjust in Power BI Desktop override everything that's in the theme file. For example, this background is gray. If I go back in here to the background again, style and shape here, you can see here, this is the default color. The default is gray and the transparency is 0.
Yep.
If I change this color to another color, just call this pink blue one, or let's grab another one here. It's a little bit lighter here. Red. Okay, fine, it's red. If I now build another visual, let's go build another stacked bar chart here real quick. Right click, add visual. We're going to add another stacked bar chart, and we're going to need to add some data to it. So let's add the x-axis. We're going to need to add some data to that one. Let's go to our fact sales, we'll add discounts. And then you'll notice the default property is already set there. Now, if I remove the theme file by going back to the default, I can go back to the view ribbon, down to the options here, and go to the default visuals. So now this is my default Power BI report. I just undid my theme file. You'll notice that the color is also now off. So this color is now the default color. It's something else on the report. And the reason that this is dark purple is because it's picking up the indexed color of that item and using it on the visual. If I now change my theme file again, re-upload my theme file one more time, browse for themes, upload the stream theme, the background color changes to the indexed color that we have on the theme file, but we've now overridden that color. It's no longer gray. So we basically adjusted that color to be this index color here on this column right here. So
okay.
Be aware if you adjust the properties inside your Power BI file, it overrides, and you can know that by seeing this little reset to default. So anytime you adjust a property, for example, I turn the title off, when you see reset to default highlighted here below, that means you've adjusted a property over top of the standard theme files or the standard desktop application. So if I look at something else here, you'll see that that looks grayed out. This means I have not adjusted anything versus up here, I have adjusted something. So it's actually telling me if I want to go back to the default values, I have to do that. If you want to reset this visual to all its default settings, you can click the ellipsis up in the upper right-hand corner up here. Click on the ellipsis. And the first item in the list is called Reset All Settings to Default. By clicking that, it'll reset that entire visual. It'll take away all your custom properties and go back to whatever the theme file says it is. So
it took me so long. That was there for a couple of years before I realized that existed, right?
Yeah, it's not easy to get to. So, and the other challenge here is there is no really easy way to reset the entire report. So again, my workflow pattern here is start with the theme file, build some visuals that make sense, spend time developing your standard, immediately load that to your Power BI file before you build any visuals. Because what you'll do is you tend to build visuals and then you kind of start adjusting the properties and then you're like, oh shoot, I should have made a theme file. And then you go make the theme file and then you have properties that are a mix of, well, I stylized some things, I changed some stuff, and now it doesn't look default anymore. So I really recommend start with the theme file, start with a standard first, then build your visuals because that makes it a lot easier for you to build stuff later on. And you'll make less mistakes.
Exactly. And there was actually something that, on two things. I think you want your theme file to hit 98% of what needs to be done by default, but there's always going to be some page, some exception where you'll do little tweaks here and there. But one thing that I won't say a name of, but I've heard from some other individuals who have built some other external tools and plugins that they're working on a report best practices analyzer. That they want to create, similar to the BPA for Tabular Editor, but it would be able to scan the report.layout file and actually tell you things like, oh, there's two visuals on page 3 that the title is a 13-point font instead of an 11, which is the standard. So you get like yellow cards in a lot of places where it's not necessarily wrong, but you can identify when patterns have been broken or certain report issues have happened. But I would love to see something like that someday that will save me hours of time if a client wants me to audit their report and make it better,
Yeah, and that will always be a challenge until Microsoft actually defines like a standard or a spec that defines how to build visuals programmatically or how to build things inside a desktop file, because they're not willing to commit to a standard at this point because everything is so fluid. Things are changing so fast. It's been very difficult to really get into understanding, all this is defined by code. I mean, Microsoft's doing it. They've coded this all together so that it can build these visuals via code. So they just haven't exposed that to us, the developers, to actually build tools that can analyze at a higher pace. I think the only other one I'm aware of is Michael Kowalski's report analyzer that's kind of out there in the public sphere today is his tool. So he does a good job as well. He's a really good analyzer of that. I believe
that mostly is a focus on performance and speed for the report page. Essentially, it was the optimized ribbon before the optimized ribbon kind of came out around.
Yeah. The only other one I'm really aware of is Stephanie Bruno's the Power BI Field Finder, I think is what that was called. Field Finder, or
yes,
that's the other.
The Field Finder. Then there's MK Feldman's Power BI Cleaner. But
that's focused on data elements though, as opposed to picking up visuals.
Well, the field, I thought the field finder was I thought that was also looking for unused stuff, or maybe it's been a minute since I've used it.
There's also another one, a PowerBI helper. So that's the one that's also on our site as well. So I'll find the link for that one as well. There's another tool out there as well that will help you. The field finder tool will then help you analyze your report page and kind of graphically show things on the page as well here. Yes. So here's another one here. So this is the Power BI Field Finder. It's a Power BI report that basically graphically shows you all the different elements on the page, which bar charts, what data is being used where. So again, very lightweight, picking apart that Power BI file and helping out a little bit there. Made by Stephanie Bruno. She did a great job on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually working on she inspired me from that one because I'm hopefully getting this out soon. It's taken an insane amount of time to build this external tool, but I'm working on a bookmark documenter. And one thing that I want to do is similarly, I want to have like a blueprint of the page, but this time I'm actually working with Daniel Marsh-Patrick, and he's using Deneb to build it out because it'll actually be able to cross filter as well. So you could select on the elements on that, and it will show you for like, oh, for this group, it has these visuals, and here's the corresponding bookmarks that were like related to that. But I love that idea of being able to like see a layout of the X, Y, and Z coordinates on a page on where your groups and visuals are.
Totally. Makes total sense. Well, with that, we burned through like a pretty good hour. This is the full enchilada demo here on There's a lot to it. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. We'd love for you to subscribe. If you want to go find out how to do it, you can go into your Power BI environment. If you just click on sign in the upper right hand corner, you'll see that when you sign in with something, either GitHub or your Microsoft or Twitter account, if you sign in with one of those accounts, it'll then prompt you to say, hey, you want to join and subscribe? It'll take you to a subscriber page. So you can actually go to a subscription page where you can manage your subscription and go get that. So if you want all the fancy features, saving things and having real-time visuals update, we recommend you jump in with a subscription so we can keep it live and developing. But if you want to just use the tool, you're more than welcome to. It's free. Anyone can use it as is. You just don't get to save or see the live updating features.
I mean, I'll say I'm subscribed and definitely very much appreciate the ability to make those edits. I put about 30 minutes into my first one so far, and at one point, because knowing how many soapboxes I have about so many little features, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. I probably need about 2 to 3 hours to properly configure exactly the thing that I want to, because it's a bit of back and forth, right? You download like, oh no, it's missing this. But I plan to eventually like use your tool to build out like a free to have, like, here's what I consider to be my best practices theme file. It has, like slicers, visual headers turned off here, pin icon turned off, everything, but all of those defaults that I would want that are able to be exposed into here, I'm going to release as kind of a best practices theme file, and then people can just choose whatever color palette they want to. But I just need the time to actually go through and make sure I've accounted for every menu item that's in here, and like what would I actually do as a default output for this.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like you have like two contrast, like so there's one like if it's a lighter background, and the other opposite of this is like what happens when you build dark mode. It's so difficult to build anything in dark mode. It just doesn't. It just doesn't work. So even if you went here and just tried to build a dark mode, let me go back to the palette here real quick. If you go to the palette, let's add a little dark color here for a background.
You can't just flip it either, like because you're never just doing black. You're usually doing off blacks or dark colors, and like and making sure that the contrast, like the whatever that the accessibility like 5:1 or 10:1 scales and all that has to be met. Like there's so many little elements to tweak. I will say that if at any point you do have that option to upload, like that dark theme that Microsoft does have built in, like be able to take that and then start to edit that from there would be a great starting point for that. Or hopefully somebody, maybe hint to the audience, somebody can go build this out, upload it to the themes gallery, and then people can just take it and kind of lift and shift it from there. That actually is one final question I think that would be good for me on this is, if you go to the themes gallery and you like a theme, it gives you the option to download. Can you edit that theme? What about if I like it, but I want to make some edits?
Oh, on the gallery, our gallery?
Yeah, in your gallery.
Yeah, so again, this is another item on our backlog. We're going to give, if you're a subscriber, we're going to add this into your subscription. So we're going to eventually add the gallery here. We're going to let you be able to pick your favorites. We're going to let you be able to save things from here. We're going to let you have the edit button directly from here, and then basically preload a theme file directly into your item. So Yes, the answer is it's coming. It's on the backlog. Our goal is to incorporate this directly into the existing tool. That way, people will be able to see changes immediately and be able to find anything across the community and get stuff together very fast. We're also looking at trying to build out galleries for bar charts, line charts, pie charts, and just kind of being able to selectively pick through what other people are putting inside their theme files and picking the ones that you like and just kind of creating a collection of recommended visuals. And here's a recommended list of theme properties. And you can kind of pick and choose what you want. So
you can bespoke build out. You're like, so I want this configuration for the bar chart. I want this configuration for the scatter. I want this color palette. Okay, so you're basically picking the top level categories and mixing and matching.
100%.
I'm guessing by the time you get to that, you'll probably have some type of a titling and voting system maybe for the themes that are in there, because you said you had a lot of themes that are uploaded. So being able to sort by stuff would probably help people filter it down.
Yeah, we probably have well over 100,000 different styles of things now at this point in time. So there's just too much at this point. So we're gonna try to continue to adjust that to make it easier for people. That's the challenge here. Is there's so much content, is to be able to figure out what's the best way to present the content for people. That's going to become the challenge now.
I do need to throw a couple of fun jokes up here because Greg always delivers. Does dark mode speed up my reports like the red paint in my car makes it go faster?
Oh, 100%. If you use dark mode, it makes everything go faster.
It does, yeah. You're the read rate for your eyes, everything moves faster, yeah.
Well, agreed, yeah. Dark mode is...
Well, yeah, go ahead. I was just reading the other question.
No problem. I'm just continually stylizing this dark mode one here. So I was actually finishing this out here, changing the title here. I was trying to figure out where the title alignment, we'll put it in the center. You can make the text size a little bit larger. Title, text size, make it a bit bigger. So now you have a clean visual that is actually very nice. And so I hate this color. This color is actually awful. So I can go back in here and we can tweak the color additionally. Let's modify that more. Make it a bit lighter, add it back in. Probably need to go more of like an aqua. Can tweak that a bit more. Add that in. I'll make that my primary color. Then we go back to the properties. Now you've got a bit more of a dark mode visual, so you can use that in dark mode.
And Rafal was asking about font colors, but I think that's all reflected in here. Like if you change the default title font or label font or anything else at the global setting, or even at the individual visual setting, those colors will also change in real time in here as well.
Correct. So if I have a title here of this title is applied to this particular visual, and I think I'm just double checking here. If I reset this back to the default settings, if I go back up to the global properties, and then we need to find the property called total, which Microsoft, take note, these properties are all in order alphabetically. So I know where to go for the word called title. Imagine that. So that would be really helpful.
So wait, are you telling me it's not sorted by most to least used?
No, it's just total. Well, for now it's alphabetical. We have a feature coming out next week that's going to be allowing you to have a search bar, so you'll be able to search for things as well. So that'll make it also very helpful as well. But I've made the alignment on the title center. I made the font color white, and then we're going to make the font color here like larger. So let's go up a little bit more in size, 15 or 16. If I go back to the visual, it should re-render that. So it's centered it. It didn't change the font size yet. Maybe I didn't hit apply on that one yet. But it's doing some of the changes for the title properties. So those title properties will propagate down into the sub values there as well.
I'll have one last question from Greg because I love the preface. I feel bad that I've only so far contributed a joke question. So do you have any features planned to check contrast ratios, color blindness friendliness, or other accessibility characteristics for a theme?
Yeah, this is a good feature. Believe it or not, this is actually very challenging to do with a PowerBI embedded visual. You're basically iframing something, and you have to have some way of being able to scan the image of whatever visual you're creating and then provide color accessibility. So we do have an item. It's a feature that's been already added into our GitHub around being able to have some sort of indicator that says, hey, your colors might be a bit off, or they're not quite compliant from an accessibility standpoint. So we're looking at exploring that feature. It's actually a bit harder than you would think to actually implement that. So we're still trying to figure out the right way to do that.
Question on that, like, would you actually have to scan the image? Because your access label has a hex color, your background color for the visual has a hex color. The hex color library, I'm sure it has like a grid that already knows this color to this color has this ratio in it. If you just give the accessibility thing just the 2 hex codes itself, is there not a catalog to know that these 2 colors just put into a whatever compute can determine the difference between them? It already knows that it's going to be a 5-to-1 or a 6-to-1, even without reading the image itself. So simply getting the colors.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably get away with some very basic accessibility options by doing that. The challenge becomes when you have other things like data labels or other things that are actually occurring and turning on the visual, because then you get data labels that could be inside the bar or outside the bar.
Okay.
And so now there's actually like, if you think about a visual in like multiple layers, you could have a layering effect of there's a background image, a bar, and then text, and then those could all be stacked upon each other. So then you'd have to be a bit more intelligent around, okay, what are you comparing against? Is it the text between the bar color and the text, or is the text and the background color? So it gets a little bit extra complicated when you start getting into that kind of detail. So that's why an image is easier, because then you can just kind of analyze the image and look for changes in color and figure out which ones are causing problems or not. But I think at a high level, you do something simple like that, like, hey, these colors are not far enough apart to give you that answer. So we'll look into that a bit more, but that'd be another option.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like it almost like a phase 1 and phase 2, because at the most basic level, does my font and background have a good contrast or not? And then, as you said, it's all those little shapes and elements and then overlays, and like whether or not they're adjacent, or is there a color between them? Are they too close?
It
that
gets
has
more
to be
subjective.
scanned by an image. Okay. Good point. Excellent.
We've thought about that. We've had the discussions internally to figure out if that would work or not.
Consult and answer. It depends. How easy is it?
It's true. All right. Perfect. I think that's about it. Anything else you want to kind of cover off on?
No, I don't think so. Managed to hit everything. I think in terms of reviewing all the features and items on that was fantastic. And I'm honestly, like, as soon as I saw this come out, my immediate thought was like, oh, I can so easily now. For me, it's the visual headers. Like I like the color themes, but I just hate having to go through and customize the turning off the pin icon, turning off headers by default for slices, all that stuff. Which is,
that's like the first global property I said is go in, everything off, don't show any of it, and then I'll turn it on.
Well, yes, exactly, because at the report layer you can have turned off by default, and then you turn on per visual. Because the tables mostly bunk. If people do use commenting, then you do want the ellipses, because that does allow for like comments. But also, sadly, you can't turn on or off the elements inside of the more options. You can turn on and off more, but that is a grab bag of 5. Yeah, but like that's one of my favorite features of this is just the visual header configurations globally and per visual.
Makes total sense. Well, excellent. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It's been super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you coming on, showing this, and like, I mean, each time you build a toy and something cool to have for Power BI, because you like building stuff for sure, and software to go with this. Yeah,
I like building. I like finding hard things and making them easier. So stay tuned. There's a ton more stuff for coming down the pipeline. There's a lot of other tools that we're working on right now. We're going to continue to build the best visualization tools out there to help you build better and faster reports.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your week, and then everyone, thanks for tuning in. And I'll be out next week, but I will see you all back on a live stream here in a few weeks.
Cheers.
All right, cheers. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.